The warm morning light filtered through the Wilsons' glass villa, glinting off the polished marble floors. Jane Wilson moved quietly through the kitchen, her hands steady but her heart heavy as she placed the last cupcake onto the birthday tray. Today was Danny's 5th birthday. Balloons swayed gently above the dining table, and a little hand-painted banner read, "Happy birthday, Danny, Mommy," Danny chirped, running in with his toy car, his cheeks flushed with excitement. "Yes, sweetheart," Jane smiled, kneeling to fix his messy collar. "Can Sophia come to my birthday? Daddy likes her, and maybe she can be my new mommy." The words stabbed her like ice. Jane froze, her smile faltering. "What did you say?" Her voice trembled despite her effort to keep it light. "Daddy said Sophia's really nice," Danny continued innocently, spinning his toy car on the counter. "I like her too. She smells like flowers." Jane forced a soft laugh, but her fingers tightened around the edge of the tray. Sophia Davis, the name that haunted her dreams. The woman whispered about by Oliver's friends and colleagues. By evening, the house was filled with the hum of guests and the aroma of fresh-baked Scotch eggs, Danny's favorite. Jane smoothed her dress, glancing toward the front door, hoping to see Oliver stride in with the same warm smile he once reserved only for her. Instead, a flash of silver outside the window caught her eye. A sleek, black Bentley glided to a stop, and there she was, Sophia, graceful in a cream dress, her hand resting lightly on Oliver's arm as he opened the car door for her. Jane's chest tightened as if someone had gripped her heart. Through the window, she watched Oliver lean toward Sophia, whispering something that made her laugh, her hand playfully brushing his shoulder. The doorbell rang. Danny squealed and ran to the door, shouting, "Sophia, Mommy Sophia." Jane's knees nearly gave way. The living room buzzed with polite greetings as Sophia glided in, smelling of white lilies, her smile radiant. Guests whispered behind their hands, exchanging knowing looks. In the corner, Jane stood perfectly still, her nails pressing into her palms. The laughter in the room seemed to fade to a dull roar in her ears. Through the reflection on the glass door, she caught a fleeting image, Oliver, leaning close to Sophia, completely forgetting the wife who had spent all morning making his son's birthday perfect. A single thought bloomed in her chest, heavy and cold. Maybe I'm the stranger in my own home now. That night, Jane lay awake in the quiet master bedroom, the laughter from downstairs echoing in her mind, and when she heard Oliver's deep chuckle mixed with Sophia's soft voice, a single tear rolled down her cheek. The soft glow of candles flickered across the dining room, casting warm light over the perfectly arranged birthday cake. Jane had spent the entire day preparing for this moment, hoping it would be a memory Danny would treasure forever. "Make a wish, sweetheart," she whispered, guiding Danny toward the cake. Danny squeezed his little fists and blew out the candles with a giggle, the room erupting in polite applause. But Jane's smile faltered the moment she heard a soft, melodic laugh behind her, a laugh that wasn't hers. Sophia Davis had made herself comfortable on the living room sofa, a vision in her cream dress. She held a gift bag sparkling with diamonds and gold trim, clearly from a designer store Jane couldn't even pronounce. Beside her, Oliver stood with a glass of wine, his gaze lingering on Sophia like she was the only person in the room. "Danny, come here," Sophia cooed. "I brought you something special." The little boy ran into her arms without hesitation. Jane's chest tightened as she watched Sophia hand him a sleek, remote-controlled car, limited edition, gleaming with metallic red, the kind of gift that screamed wealth and indulgence. "Wow, thank you, Mommy Sophia," Danny shouted, hugging her legs. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. A faint gasp escaped Jane's lips. Her son had called another woman Mommy. Oliver chuckled lightly, pretending not to notice Jane's trembling hands. "He's just a kid, Jane. Don't be so sensitive. Not be so sensitive." The words carved into her heart. She looked around the room, and all she saw were the judgmental eyes of neighbors and relatives. Some whispering, some smirking. She excused herself to the kitchen, gripping the counter until her knuckles turned white. Her reflection in the window showed a woman she barely recognized, tired, invisible, and humiliated in her own home. From the other room, Danny's laughter echoed with Sophia's playful voice. Oliver's baritone joined in, warm and easy, a sound he hadn't shared with Jane in months. She pressed a hand to her chest, struggling to keep her breathing steady. For the first time, the thought formed clearly in her mind, maybe I don't belong here anymore. That night, while Oliver and Sophia shared wine in the living room, Jane locked the bedroom door and sat in the dark, hugging herself. On the bedside table lay an untouched birthday card she had written for Oliver to sign, a card that now felt like a cruel joke. A week passed after Danny's birthday, but the house no longer felt like home. Jane moved through the rooms like a ghost, her footsteps soft on the marble floors. The scent of lilies from Sophia's visit still lingered, clinging to the curtains. That night, a sharp pain bloomed in Jane's abdomen as she was preparing dinner. At first, she brushed it off, thinking it was just fatigue. But within minutes, the pain sharpened, curling through her body like a knife. She clutched the countertop, her face pale. "Mommy," Danny's small voice trembled from the doorway. His toy car clattered to the floor. "Sweetheart, call your daddy," she whispered, barely holding herself up. Moments later, Oliver's footsteps echoed through the hall, followed by the click of expensive shoes. Sophia's laughter drifted behind him. "What now, Jane?" Oliver muttered, irritation flashing across his face as he pulled out his phone. "I need the hospital." Her voice broke, her body trembling. For the briefest moment, worry crossed his features, but then Sophia stepped in, her perfume overwhelming, her voice sweet as poison. "Oliver, it's probably nothing. Don't overreact. Our dinner reservation is in 30 minutes. Jane's eyes widened in disbelief. She was clutching the edge of the dining table, fighting to stay upright, while her husband hesitated between her and his mistress. Danny tugged at Oliver's sleeve, his eyes filling with tears. "Daddy, Mommy's really sick, please." Finally, Oliver snapped out of it, dialing the driver. Minutes later, Jane was in the backseat of the Bentley, curled against the leather, the city lights blurring past her tear-filled eyes. Sophia stayed behind. At the hospital, the cold fluorescent lights stung Jane's vision. Nurses rushed her into a room, checking her vitals. "You're under a lot of stress," the doctor said gravely. "If you don't rest, you could lose your health completely." Oliver stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, scrolling through his phone. "I'll send Sophia to bring you dinner later," he said flatly. Jane turned her face to the wall, her tears soaking the thin hospital pillow. In that moment, a silent vow formed in her heart. "I can't keep living like this. My son and I deserve better." That night, as she lay in the sterile hospital room, Danny curled at her side. Jane whispered a promise to herself. "If he won't protect us, I will." The hospital discharged Jane 2 days later with strict instructions to rest. But returning to that house, once her sanctuary, felt like stepping into a battlefield. Oliver didn't come to pick her up. It was the driver who escorted her home, while Danny sat quietly in the backseat, clutching her hand. The silence was thick, broken only by the hum of the car. When the front door opened, laughter spilled out. Sophia's laughter. Jane froze in the doorway. Sophia was perched on the couch, sipping wine, wearing one of Oliver's dress shirts like it belonged to her. A half-finished dinner was laid out: steak, lobster, and red wine, all the things Oliver never bothered to prepare for Jane. "Oh, you're back," Sophia said smoothly, her eyes flicking to Jane's hospital bracelet. "Feeling better?" Jane swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the handle of her suitcase. Danny pressed into her side, sensing her tension. "Oliver," Jane said softly, her voice cracking, "I just got out of the hospital. Couldn't you at least?" "Jane," Oliver interrupted, setting down his glass with a sigh. "We've talked about this. You're always overdramatic. I can't babysit you every time you feel faint." The words hit like a slap. Babysit, overdramatic. Sophia leaned back against the couch, a faint smirk playing at her lips. "You should rest, Jane. Stress isn't good for, well, anything." Danny's small voice broke through the tension. "Daddy, can we have dinner together? All of us?" Oliver hesitated, his eyes darting between his mistress and his family. Then he shook his head. "Not tonight. Sophia and I have plans." Jane's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. At that moment, she realized nothing would ever change. No matter how much she endured, she would always come second. That night, she packed quietly in the guest room while Danny slept curled on the bed. She stared at the half-empty suitcase, tears blurring her vision. Leaving would mean starting over from nothing, but staying would mean losing herself completely. As the moonlight spilled across the floor, Jane zipped her suitcase shut and whispered to the sleeping Danny, "We're leaving, sweetheart. Mommy won't let anyone hurt us again." The house was silent when Jane finally rose before dawn. Only the faint hum of the city beyond the windows reminded her that life outside these walls went on. She slipped into Danny's room. The boy was curled under his dinosaur blanket, his little hand gripping the stuffed bear she'd given him on his first birthday. For a moment, she hesitated, her heart aching at the thought of what she was about to do. "No, this is the only way." Jane knelt beside him, brushing a kiss against his forehead. "Sweetheart, wake up, we're going on an adventure," she whispered. Danny blinked sleepily. "A trip?" "Yes, just you and Mommy." She smiled through the tremor in her voice. "We'll be safe and happy." She packed only the essentials, some clothes, Danny's favorite toys, and the savings she had quietly collected over the years. Her life condensed into 2 suitcases and a backpack. As they stepped into the chilly morning air, the street was empty, washed in pale blue light. Jane glanced back at the mansion one last time. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a gilded cage. A taxi pulled up to the curb. The driver, yawning, loaded their bags. "Where to, Mom?" "The train station," Jane said firmly. Her fingers trembled as she gripped Danny's hand, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Back inside the mansion, Oliver stirred only hours later. He reached for his phone lazily, expecting a message from Sophia. Instead, he noticed the silence. No footsteps, no smell of breakfast, no laughter from Danny's room. Confused, he checked the bedroom, empty, then Danny's room, also empty. By the time he reached the garage, panic set in. Jane's car was gone. A note was taped to the steering wheel of his luxury sedan. It was short, simple: "We're leaving, don't look for us, Jane." Oliver's hands shook. His chest tightened with a fear he had never known. He had always assumed Jane would endure anything. He had never imagined she would actually leave. "Danny, Jane," he muttered, his voice cracking for the first time in years. The CEO who thought he owned the world stood barefoot in his silent mansion. Realizing he had lost the only people who truly loved him. Oliver Wilson had closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But that morning, his hands trembled as he dialed number after number. Check the airports, train stations, call the chauffeur, check the security cameras. He barked into the phone, his voice hoarse with panic. Sophia appeared in his doorway, still wearing his shirt from the night before, hair tousled. "What's with the yelling? Did she finally leave?" she asked casually, unaware of the storm she'd stepped into. Oliver whipped around, his eyes wild. "She took Danny. She's gone." Sophia blinked, surprised, then shrugged. "Well, she'll come back. She always does." But Oliver wasn't so sure anymore. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. The mansion felt like an empty, echoing shell. No smell of pancakes in the morning. No tiny footsteps running across the floor. No Jane humming while folding laundry. He scrolled through his phone, hesitating before calling Jane's number. Straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, Jane and Danny sat on a train that rattled away from the city skyline. Danny leaned against her shoulder, still drowsy. "Mommy, are we really never going back?" Jane kissed the top of his head, holding him closer. "No, sweetheart, we're starting fresh, somewhere Daddy can't hurt us anymore." She had rented a small apartment 3 hours outside the city, tiny, with peeling paint and mismatched furniture. But when Jane unlocked the door, She felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. No one could take this away from her. Not Oliver, not Sophia, not anyone. Back in the city, Oliver's search intensified. He hired private investigators. He combed through bank statements, trying to trace any account Jane might have used. Days passed with no sign of her, and the man who had once scoffed at the idea of losing her now couldn't sleep. At night, Oliver sat alone in Danny's empty room, holding the stuffed bear that smelled faintly of baby shampoo. The reality hit him like a freight train. He had traded his family for an illusion. One evening, Oliver finally received a blurry photo from a private investigator, Jane and Danny, smiling on a park bench in a quiet little town. For the first time, Oliver realized she wasn't coming back, and that terrified him more than losing any deal. It was a quiet Sunday morning in the small town Jane now called home. Sunlight streamed through the modest apartment window, dancing across Danny's toy cars scattered on the floor. Jane sipped her coffee, finally at peace, when a sharp knock shattered the calm. Her heart froze. She knew that knock. When she opened the door, Oliver stood there, creased suit, dark circles under his eyes, his usual arrogance stripped away. For a moment, he looked like a stranger. "Jane, please," he said, voice raw, "I need to talk to you." Jane's stomach twisted, but she stepped outside, closing the door behind her to shield Danny. "You found us," she said flatly. I've been losing my mind," Oliver stammered, running a hand through his messy hair. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I was a fool. Please, come home, both of you. I'll fire Sophia. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me like this." Jane let the silence stretch between them. For years, she had dreamed of hearing those words. But now, they felt hollow. "You didn't care when I begged for your attention," she said quietly, her eyes locked on his. "You only care now because I walked away." Oliver flinched like her words were a slap. "I love you. I didn't realize what I had." "No," Jane cut in, her voice steady. "You loved the idea that I would always be there. You loved control. But love doesn't hurt like that. Danny and I deserve better." He sank to his knees on the doorstep. The once untouchable CEO now just a broken man. "Please, Jane, give me one more chance. I'll change, I swear." Her hand trembled on the doorknob, but she forced herself to stay strong. "There's no going back, Oliver. I'm not the same woman who let you walk all over her." Danny's small voice suddenly called from inside. "Mommy, who is it?" Jane turned her back on Oliver, opening the door. "No one we need in our lives anymore, sweetheart," she said gently. She shut the door without another glance. Outside, Oliver sat on the cold steps, the weight of regret crushing him. Inside, Jane hugged Danny tight, her resolve hardening. This was the first day of their new life. One where she would never be someone's afterthought again. 6 months later, the small town that had once felt like a temporary escape now felt like home. Jane walked through the local farmer's market, sunlight catching in her hair as she held Danny's hand. The townspeople greeted her warmly. She was no longer the invisible housewife she'd once been, but a confident woman building her own life. With her degree finally completed online and a new job as a math consultant at the local academy, Jane had discovered something priceless: freedom. Her evenings were filled with laughter and storybooks, not tears. Danny's smile had returned, brighter than ever. One afternoon, Jane received a certified letter. Oliver had officially filed for divorce. Along with it came a personal note in his familiar, sharp handwriting. "I've lost the only thing that ever mattered. I hope you're happy without me." Jane read it in silence, then tore it in half. She wasn't angry anymore, just free. Across the city, Oliver's life had unraveled. The mansion was empty, echoing with memories he could no longer escape. Sophia had left the moment the credit card stopped flowing, and his business empire had suffered under his distraction. Every corner of the house reminded him of the family he'd thrown away for a fleeting thrill. One rainy evening, Oliver drove to the small town and parked across the street from Jane's apartment. Through the window, he saw her laughing with Danny. the soft glow of the lamp making the scene look like a painting. He wanted to knock, to beg one last time, but he didn't. Deep down, he knew the truth. Jane had moved on. The next morning, Jane stood on the porch, sipping her coffee as the sun rose over her new life. She took a deep breath, feeling lighter than ever. "Mommy," Danny said, running out with a piece of paper. "I drew us a picture. It's our home, just us." Jane knelt, hugging him close. "It's perfect, sweetheart. This is our life now. Just us, and that's all we need." The wind carried away the last trace of the past, leaving only hope. Oliver drove away without being seen, the rearview mirror reflecting his own lonely silhouette. For him, regret would be a lifelong companion. For Jane and Danny, life was just beginning.